Hello everyone, welcome to another session on Python for data science. So today we will continue with pandas. So if you remember in the last class, we were discussing basically what is pandas and brief overview of pandas. Okay, we also discussed basically how to create data frames from pandas. Data frames in pandas from various data structures like list, various data structure like dictionary as well. So today we'll move on from there to reading in data sources. Okay, so Pandas supports reading in of different data sources. So Pandas basically supports a whole lot of data sources. So let me just open, just show you different data sources currently supported by Pandas. So you can directly read it from clipboard, from a CSV, from my Excel. So whether there is a particular file format. So these are the different file formats which by default Pandas supports. So today we'll work with a CSV file. Basically, we'll read in a CSV file and we'll look at different functionalities which are available in Pandas. Okay. So the first one which we'll do is we'll just basically read the file. The file is again a sample file. So this is a file. This is a command for reading it. You just give the file path. So one thing to note is if this particular file is in your current working directory, you need not give it the absolute path. If this particular file is not in your working directory, it's in some other place on your system, you need to give it the complete path. It's absolute path, right? So you can just directly read the file. So you've read the file. Okay. So usually the first thing which you do after you've read the file is look at its dimensions, right? So the command which you'll use in pandas for doing that is df.shape. So basically what df.shape will tell you is it will tell you the number of rows in the file. The first value represents the number of rows in the file, and the second value represents the number of columns in this particular file. Okay. The command which you use is dot shape. Okay. Next, so after you've known the number of rows and number of columns, you just want to have a sort of view at few rows of the file. So this is a command for doing that. This is called head. Basically what will head do for you is it will give you top 5 rows, but it will give you all the columns in the particular data frame. Okay. So this is again, you can specify how many number of rows you want. Do you want 3? You can specify. So you can specify how much of you want. This is head. So df.head will give you the top 5 rows. What df.tail will give you is the bottom 5 rows. Okay, so these are the two methods which you can use for getting sort of a sneak peek at the data, sort of view at the data. So now that you know what the data is, you know what type of data it is, you know the shape of it, you know the top 5 rows as well as the bottom 5 rows. So the next step is sort of getting summary statistics. Yes, what do I mean by summary statistics is it could be what is the count, what is the number of unique values, what is the frequency of it, frequency for a particular word, right? So obviously you can write your own methods for that. You can write your own functions for that, but Pandas has a built-in method called describe. So you basically run describe, you get the various summary statistics. So these are the column names: first name, last name, company, address, city, county, so on. These are the column names. These are the sort of the summarizing metrics. You're taking the count, you're taking the unique. Right. Now, suppose you just want to know what are the columns. What are the columns? You want to know what are the columns, as in what is each column? What is the name of each column? So the method is columns. Now, when I just type df.columns, it will give you a list of all the columns available in this particular data frame. Right. So you can maybe convert it to a list for, say, suppose you want to put this in some sort of condition. Maybe you want to look at those columns just starting with the first name, with only which has the word name in it, or along those lines. So any condition. So usually it's preferred if you put it in a list. It's far more easier to manipulate, far more easier to write logics, stuff like that. So this is how you get the df dot columns. You get the list of all. So now you have a brief summary. You have done few very brief summary statistics. You've looked at the top 5 columns. You know the columns. So the next thing is maybe you want to know the data type of it. right? You might want to know what is the data type of each column. Maybe the data type could be what Pandas has inferred from it, and the number of non-null values and various things like that. So you can just run .info method. Basically, what .info method will help you with is it will tell you. It will basically tell you what is the data type of each thing. So each one is an object. So what basically is an object is a categorical data type. You have basically categories in it. That's why Pandas inferred object. So you can specify what each column could have whatever data type you can basically specify from it. So there is a argument in read_csv where is specifying what is the data type of it. There is a way of specifying it. So you just need to specify what the column is of what type. Okay. And so you can specify the date, what column is the date, what column is the not date. You can specify all of that. Yeah, D type. So you just need to give a list or a sort of a dictionary where you're saying this column is num, this column is integer, this column is character, this column is object, things like that. Okay. So for now, these are the columns, 11 columns. All of them are object, all of them are categories. Right. So next we'll actually look at, suppose how do you want to create a new column in Pandas? Say suppose you want to create a new column. How do you do that? Creating a new column is fairly straightforward. I think it's very similar to, say, how do you create a new key in a dictionary, right? So we have a dictionary. How do you create a new key? You just write the dictionary name, put a square brackets, key name is equal to whatever value you want to put it over there. Along those lines, you just write, say, I'm creating df is the data frame name, random is the column name which I want to keep. So I just fill it up. Yeah, obviously there are certain things which you need to keep in mind. So it's not like in a dictionary wherein, say, the value in the first key has 10 elements, value in the second key could have 5 elements, third key could have 20 elements. So there's no particular restriction, but over here, the restriction is, say, whatever new column you're creating, it should have the same number of rows. If it has 100 rows, the new column should have 100 rows. Okay, so or else you will end up with an error. So what we'll do again, we'll just put a very random. So we'll just basically use. So this is list comprehension. For those of you who have followed all of the previous sessions, this should be straightforward. So list comprehension. List comprehension is basically, instead of you writing complete for loop and writing multiple steps, you can just get the job done in a single line, right? It will basically do the same thing whichever you wanted to do, maybe in multiple lines. Okay, so you're basically, I'm just looping over. So whatever is the shape, df.shape of 0 will give 500. So I'm basically looping over 500 elements. So I'm just randomly. Choosing a number between 0 to 1000. So I think random is not imported. Yeah. So again, one more best practice which you need to follow is try putting all imports in the beginning of the file. For now, it's fine. I'm just explaining the workings, but the best practice is you need to put all of your imports, okay, all of your imports in the beginning of the file. Okay, that would make all imports come at once. So if you're using random over here, but if suppose you do not run this file and random is somewhere down at some other place, right, it might throw an error. So it's usually best practice to put everything in the beginning cell, all imports in the beginning cell. Now what we're doing is we're just creating random numbers, right? So this thing is created. We'll have a look at it. So df.head. This is the final column random, right? So what is the next step is the next this thing which we'll look at is how do you select columns. Now we have created a new column, that's great, but how do you select a column? Right. selecting a column is fairly straightforward. Say suppose I want to know, okay, I want to know how many counties are there in this particular data set. So df.count, say I want to know the len of, I want to know the count. Obviously there's no point in just knowing that. Say there are 102 unique counts. So see, this is how basically you select a column. You just do df.county. Now say suppose you want to select multiple columns, okay. Selecting multiple columns is also fairly in a similar manner, but one thing is, okay, one thing which you would want to note is, so there are more than one way of selecting multiple columns. We'll get to that. So first of all, look at the type. So this is a series. Now say if you run, say if I select city as well and look at the type, okay. So this is not the correct way of doing it. I was actually trying to check the type. The correct way is you just need to pass multiple double square brackets. You get a data frame. The first one you used to get a series, now you get a data frame. So this is how you basically select two multiple columns. Need not be only two. Say suppose if I say it is email, right? So I can select how many number of columns I want. If it is county, if it is city, county, city, email, web. So you can select how many number of columns you want. Okay. So this is how you select columns. So next we'll move on to actually subsetting data frames. Okay. So this is actually a fairly important topic, because most of the time this is what you will be actually using a lot. Okay. So whenever you have any pandas data frame, so this is what most of the time we'll be working with, subsetting data frames based on some logic on a row wise, based on some logic on a column wise. So this would be your sort of, this would be, so this using lock and ilock method would take up most of your time. You'll be definitely using it a lot. So this will actually continue it in the next class. Thank you guys for listening. We'll again meet in the next session. Thank you.